Welcome to meeting number 4 of the Budget Review Subcommittee on General Government, Finance, Personnel, and Public Retirement, and anything else we'd like to discuss. So, Madam Clerk, would you call roll? And if you are remote, please let us know that.
Senator Mills.
I'm here remotely from the 4th District.
Thank you. Senator Southworth.
Here remotely.
Thank you. Senator Thomas. Senator West. Representative Bratcher.
I am here remotely in Jefferson County in my district.
Thank you. Representative Donahue.
Yes, ma'am. Present.
Representative Graham. Representative Hart.
Present on site.
Thank you. Representative Koenig.
Here in the room.
Representative Meredith. Representative Miles. Representative Pratt. Representative Raymond. Representative Tate.
Present in my district.
Thank you. Representative Wheatley.
Here from my district.
Thank you. Senator McDaniel. Representative Petrie. Representative Reed. Representative Gooch. Representative Miller. Co-Chair Blanton. Co-Chair Dossett. Chair Namus.
Present in the room. Do we have 13? I see that we do have a quorum. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Everybody in favor say aye. Opposed? Minutes approved. So first we have Auditor Harmon and his entourage, if they would come forward.
Dawson's having trouble.
Anyone remote, if you would mute your computer or phone, we would appreciate that. Auditor, it's all yours. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Good morning, Mike Harmon, Kentucky State Auditor. Have with me today, I'll let each of them introduce themselves.
Good morning, Sarah Beth Gregory, Chief of Staff for the Auditor of Public Accounts, and we've got a couple of our folks on remotely who I'll mention as well as the ones here at the table. We have our Assistant State Auditor, Farrah Petter, and our Executive Director of Local Government Audits, Jim Royce, who are also available if they're needed for technical expertise and questions later. And then, Tim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Tim Gutman, Director of Financial Operations.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very glad to be here. Always good. Of course, served 13 years in the Kentucky House prior to coming here. So, prior to being elected auditor. And so it's always great to be back, to see everybody, see former colleagues. Now, as you know, the motto that brought to the office, the auditor's office, is just follow the data. We don't target anyone. We don't give anybody a pass. We just simply follow the data. Our mission is to be the guardian of the taxpayers. Of course, I jokingly say that we are the watchdog of the taxpayers, and I've kind of got a running joke with our treasurer. She says that she's the watchdog of the taxpayers, and I say that I'm the watchdog. So basically, I say that she covers the front end of the dog. The auditor's office covers the back end of the dog. So together, we've got your dog covered. So we're good. We're good. Now, a lot of people also think of us as like the IRS, you know. Oh, we don't want to hear from the auditor, but we are the people's auditor. As I said, we make sure that government is efficient, effective, and ethical, as opposed to auditing your taxes.
Just want to double check. Can folks see the slides just want to make sure that that's working before we get into them. Okay. We're learning how to navigate the committee's Zoom sharing technology here.
Good job. Good
Sorry to interrupt you, boss, but wanted to be sure that
No,
people
that's
see what you
good.
were about to talk about.
That's good. That's good. All righty. Now, as you can see, our office does about 600 audits per year. We audit everything from the Commonwealth's annual comprehensive financial report. Every year we do the statewide single audit of Kentucky, and we actually release 2 volumes of that. There's volume 1 that deals specifically with the financial statement and controls. Volume 2 looks more towards federal compliance. We do audits of fiscal courts, sheriffs, county clerks, and we do special exams. Now, aside from the special exams, the majority of what we do is actually mandated by statute. Now, I do want to start today and with some of the new things that our office are doing to work towards transparency. In 2017, the General Assembly passed House Bill 189, which is to increase transparency as to our area development districts and gave the APA a right of first refusal to review work papers on the required annual audits of ads. Now, since then, we've worked with the ads and their CPA firms to get all ads using a more consistent form of financial reporting. Now, this year, we are exercising our right of first refusal to perform 2 ad audits with our APA staff. Now, in my opinion, there's always benefit when you can get a fresh set of eyes looking at things. And we were certainly glad to have the capacity this year to pick up a couple of these audits with our own staff. It's always important for us to have that look ourselves. Hopefully, this will be something that we can continue to do in the future. Now, another example of expanding transparency deals with our county attorneys. Now, one of the most common questions that I had received after becoming auditor is why county attorney offices, actually had it quite a few times, don't receive annual audits like county clerks and sheriffs do. Now, state laws give our office the discretionary authority to audit county attorneys, but there's not really a required annual audit like our other officials. However, after really taking a look at the state's child support enforcement process, we decided to do a special examination to look more deeply at the operation of 9 county attorneys. We did during our 2020 special examination of certain county attorney offices, we identified a number of issues that led to federal indictments in 2 different counties. Now, the first one, the Boyd County Child Support Office Manager, pled guilty. Now, that one's kind of interesting because it was my understanding that when our folks went in, all they did was ask for bank statements, and the following day, the child support office manager came in, talked to the county attorney, and basically said, "I know why the auditor's here. I've been stealing." So it was kind of our Perry Mason. It was really kind of our Perry Mason moment, as I understand. So, yes, that day, and of course, it only goes to show that shining a little bit of sunlight is a great disinfectant. Now, the second item that we had, the Lawrence County attorney was indicted on multiple counts related to a 6-figure payment on bonuses to his wife. That one was interesting as well. But over the past year, we've been working with the county attorney associations on a pilot program to begin more routine reviews of county attorney offices around the state, which we think obviously is important. Now that I've talked a little bit about what we do and some of the newer things that we've been working on, it's time to dive in really to the subject of the day, which is our agency's budget. Now, this slide reflects the current year appropriation for our agency, and as you can see, 40% of the appropriation is from the general fund, and about 60% is from a restricted fund. Now, because fiscal year 22 was a continuation budget, this is consistent with fiscal year 21. Now, one thing that's very important to note is that the APA's only source of restricted funds is billing for audits we conduct. Now, unlike a lot of other agencies, we do not receive federal funds or have any other restricted fund revenue streams. As our costs go up, for example, with increased pension contributions, we have to pass those costs onto agencies and local governments that we audit, unless we receive sufficient general fund dollars to cover these increases. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Beth, and she's going to cover the next slide.
Thank you, Auditor Harmon, and good morning again, everyone. This slide gives you just sort of a high-level overview of our agency spending over the last several years, and a couple of things that I'll highlight on this slide. One, you can see that most of our spending is on personnel, and you can see how much pension contributions really impact that personnel cost, obviously. You can also see here an interesting trend that's really related to the pandemic, which has caused our operating costs to drop significantly over fiscal year 20 and 21, primarily due to a reduction in in-state travel costs. We had folks working remotely, not going into offices for the audit work nearly as much as they normally would, obviously, during those times. And we also saw some reduction in our office costs with utilities and that sort of thing because, again, most people were working from home. We really have been able to learn a lot over the last year about how we can use teleworking to be more efficient even going forward, we think. A lot of our folks worked remotely already in different county courthouses, and so now if they're going into those courthouses a little less, it's saving on travel costs, both as an expense for our agency and also an expense that would get directly passed on to those counties. So even as things start to hopefully keep trending more back to normal, we hope that we'll actually be able to use that experience and what we learned during those pandemic times. Maybe we're still in them, but during the worst part of the pandemic last year, to really continue to look for those efficiencies and try to streamline things and be more efficient and use some of these new tools that we've all learned to use over the last year.
And certainly we want to take just a moment to thank our county officials. When the pandemic first hit, everybody was scrambling, and thankfully we were able to go majority telework very quickly, but we couldn't have done that if it wasn't for the county and state officials working so cooperatively with us and providing us the information so our staff could continue to do that and work from home. So a big thanks to our county officials in that regards. Also, I'm certainly extremely proud of our APA staff who once again was able to turn on a dime, and for the most part we didn't really miss a lick. So thank you to the APA staff as well.
And so our next slide really is a follow-up with just a different way to look at that shows a percentage breakdown of personnel versus operating costs. Again, you can see personnel cost is really the vast majority of our spending. We have pretty low overhead and operating costs, and 90% of that personnel cost is auditors. So I want to make that clear also. I think that's important. We don't have a lot of administrative, obviously you have to have a few IT technical support folks and, people to pay the bills and do payroll. But vast majority of our staff are auditors who are out there, doing the day-to-day work to accomplish the mission of the agency and be that watchdog that Auditor Harmon described.
Yes.
So we do struggle, like many agencies, with recruitment and retention. We have both competition with the private sector and then also with government agencies. Our staff get such good training and are highly recruitable by other government agencies from our office. So that is a struggle for us, but we really try to be conscious of balancing, the need to, we'd like to maybe pay higher salaries like a lot of agencies would to try to recruit more people, but we try to balance that and, really with the reality that the cost of salaries gets also passed on to the agencies that we audit, and they're strapped for funds as well. So it's a delicate balance, but it is a very important topic for us, obviously. Again, like a lot of agencies, trying to maintain the staff that it takes to continue doing high-quality audit work. This slide is just a representation and some detail on our rates. It's our current hourly rates that we charge and how we bill for the different types of audits that are our routine audits. Over time, obviously, rates have gone up because of increased pension costs and so on and so forth, and that those get passed on. And also, up until just these last couple of budgets, we'd been, like most agencies, hit with a series of general fund cuts through the years that had to then be passed on, still the cost to other agencies. So just to cover a couple of the details, with the work that we do on the state's annual comprehensive financial report, the big annual audit of the Commonwealth, most of that gets billed to the agencies, but a portion of that is designated to be paid covered from our general fund, and that language is budget language that's listed on the slide. So there are a few elements of that aren't billed to the state agencies that are audited. Also, with fiscal court audits, they're a little different because there is a provision in statute that those are billed at 50% of the rate for the budgeted funds of fiscal court. So that's most of their funds other than federal funds and jail canteen are a couple usually that are not budgeted. County clerk and sheriff audits under that same statute, KRS 43070, are billed at 100% of the rate cost. So one thing I want to mention, back a couple years ago, really I guess the last time that we had a biennial budget in fiscal year 19 and 20, the fiscal court rate was raised by the legislature up to 75%. And that was obviously a shift of a cost burden to local governments. And that language, the legislature changed back in the fiscal year 21 and 22 budgets back to the 50%. So we and certainly the counties appreciate the support of the General Assembly in doing that and providing the general fund dollars to help cover those costs. And I do want to mention that rates, again, thanks to you all, well, and the auditor is about to talk more about this too, I think, but the rates have not gone up since fiscal year 2019. We've been able to maintain and not raise those.
And that's been fantastic. And certainly thanks again for the legislative support that we received in the fiscal year 21 budget. In the form of the $2 million additional general fund dollars. Certainly it allowed us to return back to the 50% billing and also avoided the need for rate increases, as Sarah Beth indicated. Now, because this support was continued for fiscal year 22, once again, rates are not going to increase this year either. Our biggest ask going into the next budget session is that this funding be continued into the next biennium to keep holding down audit costs to local governments as well as other agencies. This was the first time in probably a decade that we didn't have general fund cut, and it really, and I mean really, makes a difference in both the work that we're able to do and the cost that gets passed on to county governments and other agencies that we audit. So thank you once again, not just for our office, but really it's a thank on behalf of every official and agency that gets audited.
So shifting gears a little bit with this slide from expenditures to revenues, this slide has a couple of pie charts that show kind of a breakdown of our agency revenues, our restricted funds, that is, by their major sources. And one of the things you can pretty quickly see in looking at the charts is that the county clerk and sheriff audits are the biggest piece of that pie. And really, that's because A, they're billed at 100% of the rate per statute, and B, that's 360 audits per year because every clerk and every sheriff are required to have an annual audit of their fees that they collect, and also every sheriff is required to have an annual audit of their settlement, or an annual audit of their tax settlement for the property tax revenues that they collect. So that's a big, big part of our work.
Now, one of the things that we've tried to do during my time in the auditor's office is really look for opportunities to enact policy changes that make sense both for governments and really for the taxpayers as well. In 2018, the General Assembly passed Senate Bill 144. That was a piece of legislation that our office recommended, and certainly appreciate your all's support in getting it passed. Really, it was an initiative to save money for the counties while still providing a strong transparency by allowing county clerks and sheriffs who really have a proven track record to and really no reported findings in the previous year financial statement audit to apply for what we call an AUP, an agreed upon procedure. I know many of you all voted for that, and if not all of you here voted for it, and certainly thank you to that. When we first looked at it, APA took a look at it for the recommendations. Conservatively, we thought there might be a 25 to 50%. We actually thought that there would be somewhere between 25 to 50% savings. However, was very pleased once it was passed and went into effect. The first year that our sheriffs and our county clerks participated in it, the 19 sheriffs that participated in it saw a savings of 70% on average. So we thought that was really good. That was a total savings to the counties of $144,000 on those counties that participated. Of the 45 county clerks that participated, they saw on average about a 65% savings, or a total dollar amount of those counties of about $286,000. So we felt like it was something good to do. We thought it was good to provide that incentive if you had a county clerk or a sheriff that maybe had one or two small items to get that cleaned up so they could qualify it in the year. And it actually was very beneficial for our office as well, because it allowed us to take staff, everybody's dealing with staffing shortages, so it allows us to take staff off low-risk audits and put them on higher-risk audits. Now, another example of how our office has worked to streamline and be more efficient was House Bill 265, which was sponsored by Representative Mary Beth Imes and passed during the most recent session, excluding the special session, of course. And because of the way property taxes are collected, a number of county sheriffs were required to have more than one tax settlement audit per year for different types of taxes, such as some of them have the standard, but they also have unmined coal, gas and oil. So with the passage of this bill, it will ensure that each county only has one sheriff tax settlement audit per year. Now, that's a significant savings for our counties that have previously paid for not just one, but two or even three of these type of audits. So, and most of those would be your coal counties. So the bill passed unanimously, so thank you to everyone who voted for it, and we look forward to seeing what sort of savings those would be for those counties.
So following up on what the auditor's been talking about with the county clerk and sheriff audits, when we talk about those audits and we talk about ways to save money on that, it really saves money for the counties, not specifically for those clerk and sheriff offices. Again, we charge our full rate per statute for those mandatory annual audits of those offices. And in the vast majority, it's the fiscal court who pays those bills. And ultimately, if you look at how the statute's set up, it's the fiscal court who is on the hook for the payment on those anyhow, because our authority, if there's not if the bill doesn't get paid, is to intercept state funds that would go to the county. So, the way that's set up, really, it's, again, the fiscal court who's on the hook. But this is a topic that we wanted to talk a little bit about as it's particularly of interest to Chairman Blanton. And I don't think he's with us today, but we did want to address it, partly because I know it is of interest to him. And there are some things that fiscal courts can do to try to help manage how a clerk and sheriff offices run, but really largely that's not something that they can control. And you can have situations where you end up with audit costs that are sort of outliers, as we would term them, an outlier audit being significantly more costly than average. If you have a number of things can cause it, you could have an official who maybe doesn't cooperate with the auditors, or who has really bad bookkeeping, or really isn't prepared for the audit. Or you can even have situations where you've had an employee theft or a fraud issue come up in an office. And there's been some expression from counties that that's really not fair for the fiscal court when that comes up, because they couldn't reasonably have expected that outlier audit cost when they were budgeting. But we bill for the cost of audits based on the hours that it takes to complete the work. And sometimes counties may ask us for a discount. And some of you, I don't know, as I look around the room, probably not any of you who are sitting here have called to ask for a discount, but the question has been raised, and that's not something that we have legal authority to do. But we do understand that it can put a burden on a fiscal court when an audit cost is higher than what they had expected when they budgeted. So we just wanted to toss out to this committee, and as folks are maybe thinking about that an option could be to put some budget language in to provide some small pool of general fund dollars to possibly help counties with outlier audit costs. And that's just one option. We're happy to discuss ideas that others may have. So, certainly happy to work with anyone on topics that may be of interest to you and your constituents. Our final slide, or pretty close to our final slide, I guess, we do have a couple things we just wanted to call your attention to that relate to some relatively minor points that are in existing budget language for our office that's been there for a while. And as a former legislator and former A&R committee member, I know when you can take some things out of that budget language, it's usually considered a positive because that's a massive bill anyhow. So these are just a couple. There, a long time ago, was an auditor scholarship program set up that's never actually been funded. It would be kind of similar to what you see Transportation Cabinet do with trying to recruit engineers. You help provide scholarship for a secured contract with the state. That had shall language, so it was mandatory. We proposed a modernization bill that this body passed in 2020 that kind of cleaned up some things, and it made that not a mandatory program. So we don't think that notwithstanding language is necessary on that program any longer. And then our agency is one of a few that had language. I don't know if you're all familiar with Block 50s and that concept. When state employees accrue a certain amount of compensatory leave, a payment of a block of 50 hours will be issued. Our agency had authority for those to roll into sick leave, but that's a practice that we've continued beginning with this fiscal year, or we've discontinued. I don't remember. I think I may have misspoken there. A practice we've discontinued. So we're not using that authority to roll block 50s into sick. We're really just trying to focus on managing time to not have folks earning that much overtime. But we think that was something that was appropriate to discontinue. So that budget language could come out from our standpoint. And with that, I think we'll just turn it over. I know Auditor Harmon's always happy to answer questions, as am I.
Exactly. Thank you all again. Appreciate the opportunity to come and testify. And once again, open to questions if you have them.
Thank you very much. We have any questions? Representative Graham.
Exactly.
Good to see my two former colleagues. I just want to touch upon something, Sarah Beth, that you talked about in terms of the budget language, suggested updates, and the last thing you talked about.
Yes.
And you were talking earlier about recruitment and retention. Wouldn't this be this idea of what you call the comp leave conversion to sick? Wouldn't that be one of those things that could help keep people within the agency?
I think most people, if they earn that much comp leave through overtime, would probably rather get a block 50 payment than get it rolling to sick leave. And we actually had a legal concern, frankly, with federal wage and hour laws.
Older employees, because younger employees wouldn't think on that context.
We had a concern that once you started potentially having tier 3 employees earning sufficient overtime to trigger a block 50, because their sick leave doesn't really apply to their retirement in the way that it did for older employees, that we might be running afoul of federal wage and hour laws. And that was sort of a one-size-fits-all switch for the agency on or off. So we didn't really have a mechanism to maybe let employees elect which would be most beneficial for them. And we think for most employees, and really especially as you start going forward and having tier 3 people earning overtime and that sort of thing, that it makes more sense and is just a better approach to change that.
And that does make sense. Let me ask you this as well. You talked about the number of, you didn't give us a number of the employees. You just said 90% of the employees are auditors. How many do you all have within the agency total?
Our total on staff right now is roughly 124, 125. Our personnel cap, if we were fully staffed, would be 140 full-time and 8 or so kind of part-time and interim employees. So we're taking, hopefully if we take 2 steps forward, we don't take one back on our hiring efforts. But, like every employer, I think right now it's a tough job market. It's definitely an employee-friendly job market out there.
Well, and the agency in itself is designed to protect the public's funding of all agencies, but it's also a way in which to bring in additional money for the Commonwealth. And the last thing, Mr. Chairman, if I could, you talked about this, and that's by statute, fiscal court. But I come from a background serving on the city commission.
Yes.
So what aspects of that do you deal with? I'm sure you do, but how is that any different, if not, from what you deal with in dealing with the fiscal court and county government?
So our office does not routinely do any city government audits. Those are done. Most of them have an annual or every other year audit requirement, but those are done by
But
CPA firms.
you are called in sometimes.
If we get engaged with the city, it is typically in the form of a special examination.
Okay.
So those
Because
tend to be
something has
more
been
looking
brought
for
to
waste,
that.
fraud, abuse
Yeah.
type situations. And so we do have authority to do special examinations of cities. That's actually a piece of legislation that back in Auditor Harmon's, I think, first year that Chamber
Just want to make that clear.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Or Representative.
Senator Thomas.
I really don't have a question. I just want to give a shout out to my former colleague Sarah Beth. My rookie year in the state senate, Sarah Beth and I were colleagues in the state senate. And as you know, as we say in the state senate, Sarah Beth, once a state senator, always a state senator.
Thank you.
So I have fond memories of that time we served together, and it's always good to see you.
Well, same here. I appreciate it, Senator.
And Senator, I have to say, she started out being a colleague of mine in the House, and then she fled to the Senate. So I'm sure she was glad you all welcomed her over there.
It was short-lived, but
Well, with that, I'm surprised you took her back.
Well, she does a great job. I will have to say.
I have to say that.
I will have to say
that is true. That is true. Representative Keeney.
Thank you. Do I have to fawn over the both of you having served with?
I mean, it's okay if you want to. But
Okay, I
we won't
appreciate
stop
that.
you. We won't stop you.
Thank you.
questions are also okay.
Well, a comment and a question, if I may, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I think we need to look at raises across the board in all departments in this next upcoming budget. I've said that before, and I think even in one of these meetings with your predecessor, I said we needed to give the auditor's office more money because we will hopefully save money in the long run. It may not be state money per se, but it's taxpayer dollars. And so whichever way the A&R staff or committee members go and leadership goes, but I think we're overdue across the board, and auditor's office maybe more so than others. That said, I just comment, and I wish Representative Blanton was here, so I wasn't, because I know you were talking about a concern he has, and he's representing his constituents when he does that. I'm representing my constituents. When I say if you can't pay your bills, then if you're a county that can't pay your bills, maybe you need to look at other options, including merging with other counties. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The auditor's office does not have a position on that.
We do not That's right. Thank you, Representative.
Do we have any questions remotely? I see none. I have a comment. The entities paying the audits would pay an outside firm anyway, so it isn't costing them. Actually, your fees that I have found are usually cheaper than an outside audit, because we at the Labor Cabinet were asking you all to take it, and you kept saying no, and we had to pay more to get an outside audit. So in the same vein as Representative Kenney was talking about, possibly if we paid you all a little more to have more auditors, you could save counties and other entities money, unless they're paying a lot of bonuses to family members. So.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, can I make just a quick comment on that as well?
Yes, please.
The big problem is just as you indicated, if we had more money to pay auditors, really the retention is the hard thing, because, we get people in, we get them trained, and then other agencies either snap them up or private companies snap them up. So it's one of those things, we're in a constant training. So if we could get them trained and hold on to them, then that experience level would go up, and we could actually do more audits even more efficiently.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next, we have presentation from the Kentucky Coal and Mineral County Coalition, if they'd come forward.
Tracy. He probably run for my seat when I leave.
So I think y'all had an electronic presentation. I don't know if we can get that up or not. I know remotely they won't be able to see it, but we'll have that after the presentation. All right, if you introduce yourself.
Well, maybe it's not. There you go. That's what it is.
I have to back that thing up.
Yeah. We don't have a whole lot of this electronic in Webster County. We just pretty much holler at each other. So, again, thank you for the opportunity to present. We understand the importance of this committee in the state budget process and truly appreciate the opportunity to testify. And again, my name is Steve Henry, and I am the Webster County Judge Executive and Vice President of the Kentucky Coal and Mineral Coalition. Our purpose here today is simply to say thank you for your help and confidence these past few budget sessions. Although the 2020 and 21 legislative sessions were challenging because of the COVID pandemic, this committee and the General Assembly completed demanding tasks amidst difficult circumstances. For those who are new to this conversation, coal and mineral severance is very important and considered vital to county governments. Once coal or minerals are mined and the taxes paid to the state, the funds have historically been shared through the legislative and budget process with counties and regions from which they are mined. And for this purpose of this testimony, we will separate the two sides of coal and mineral severance and discuss them in respect to each other. As local leaders that work with all of our local industries, I'm pleased to report that coal and coal mining is alive and well in coal counties. Coal still provides jobs, keeps other businesses afloat, and still has a place in our nation's energy grid. To quickly recap this fiscal year 21 state budget that just ended June 30th, CFG final projected revenue for coal severance totaled $52.4 million. The state debt service amount of $26.8 million was deducted off the top. From there, DLG administrative costs were paid at $669,000, $1 million to the state general fund, leaving $24.5 million in projections that you very generously returned to coal-producing counties. And again, for that, I just am here to say a very humbling thank you. Although $52 million was the original projection in coal severance, actual receipts totaled $56 million at the end of the fiscal year, June 30, 2021, which is great news. I'm also pleased to report that through the first 2 months of fiscal year 22, coal severance is looking good. Receipts totaled almost $8.4 million compared to $7.3 million the year before. Do we have, I think, joining us live from the heart of Eastern County is Harlan County Judge Executive Dan Mosley, and he's going to talk a little bit about the uses of coal severance in the eastern part of the Commonwealth. So do we have Dan?
Yeah. Thank you, Judge Henry, and thank you to the committee. Thank you, Chairman, for allowing us to appear today to talk about coal severance and the important uses that it has in our community. Here in Eastern Kentucky and in Western Kentucky, we've all been hit very hard by the downturn of the coal industry. Our Cole County officials worked very hard over the last interim with you all on the current FY22 budget. And once again, we can't thank you enough for your help. We want to be good stewards of these resources, and we want to be transparent about this funding. In our county, we have made a very huge focus on economic diversification with our coal severance funds. We used a large portion of coal severance money over the last 2 years to develop a state certified economic development build ready site that is on the eastern end of our county. We have also leveraged some abandoned mine land funding to get a natural gas line expanded to this site to be able to compete for industry. We also utilize this funding to fund our fire departments, our first responder groups, rescue squads. Many communities also utilize it for ambulance service funding and 911 centers, things that matter the most to the communities that we serve. As Judge Henry said, coal mining is alive. Certainly, we've all had our struggles in this industry. Fortunately, here in Harlan County, we still have several mining operations up and running that is still employing directly about 400 to 500 coal miners right here in our county. We're very thankful for that. I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about mineral severance. On the charts provided, you can see the amount of severance taxes paid on minerals over the last 20 years. Much like coal, mineral severance is a state assessed tax shared with counties. Many of these figures are market driven and the resources provided are well needed. One of the things I didn't mention, of course, is the state has debt service affiliated with the obligation on coal severance. We also, our local communities have debt service associated with it that many of us inherited when we took office either in 2019 or 2015. So we're required to honor those obligations that were made before all of us. For the FY21 fiscal year, mineral severance was projected at $26 million. For the fiscal year we are in currently, FY22, projections are $28 million. Historically, the state splits the collections in half and share the collected revenue with the county in which the mineral is mined. That projected amount returned to mineral producing counties in the current year is $14 million. Mineral severance has been down the last several quarters, mostly in natural gas and oil. I'd like to now turn it over to my colleague, Pendleton County Judge Executive David Fields, to talk a little bit more about the uses of mineral severance in his county.
Thank you again for being with you all today. Pendleton County, its location, I think Representative Coyne probably knows of our location. We're roughly about 40 to 45 minutes away from any hospitals or anything large, so we have to rely on our emergency service quite a bit. We use our mineral severance to help along our ambulance district. We give into that, and plus also we carry an annual agreement with one of the air evac air transports to assist with that too. So that's money that's used for, and then again we use it for fire protection for the county. We do have one fire taxing district, but the majority of the county is underneath the there's a taxing district, but it's underneath the fiscal court to kind of provide that fire protection, and those funds are used to that too. Along with that, we supplement our road fund for helping our county road fund. It's diminished a little bit, so we kind of use some of those funds to help with road repair and bridge repair. I mean, Pendleton County has like 52 bridges just on our county roads, so you can imagine, when they go down, it's anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 when a bridge goes out. So And also with that too, we assist, some of those funds are also used with our emergency management and with our dispatch, where we're permitted to use that. There is good guidelines on what those funds are used for, and we try to stay with those as best we can. And we did reach out to some of the other mineral Severance counties, and I'd like to read to you some of their comments on it, just so you can understand the importance in their counties. Fleming County Judge Executive Larry Foxworthy stated that Fleming County Fiscal Court relies on mineral severance funds to supplement our road fund to keep up with the ever-increasing cost of materials and equipment. Crittenden County Judge Executive Perry Newcomb has informed us that through their mineral severance has been on a decline. The county utilized most of the funding for office supplies for the county coroner. The county has mostly recently replaced outdated equipment and upgraded operations to hard-to-reach areas of the community. These upgrades have allowed the coroner's office to provide the treatment of deceased and their family with better service and dignity. Carter County Judge Mike Malone states that his being a large county with a low population, the mineral severance is crucial to our 911, which struggles to keep up its compliance with required equipment. Updates and maintaining repeaters at remote sites, rugged terrain. We would be lost without these funds. So I'm just kind of giving you a few examples on what some of these mineral severance are used for and the importance to each county that has been receiving these. So, and I thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Judge Steve Henry.
Thank you, Judge Mosley and Judge Fields, for sharing that with us this morning. We look forward to working with you all again on finding more solutions to help Kentucky counties, specifically regarding coal and mineral severance. Our request, because we always come wanting something, right? Our request of this committee for the 22 budget session is just to continue the same mantra by returning mineral and coal severance back to the local communities. Regardless of the circumstances of the outcome, we are proud of this committee's work. We do understand the tasks you all have at hand. Counties are subdivisions of the state, created by the state, and we want to be partners and supportive of the legislators' program. So again, thank you all for working with us and giving us this time. And I will say that a lot of the things, I know Judge Mosley talked about Eastern Kentucky, but very much of those same things are used in Western Kentucky to help with our budgets just the same. So we're all looking for ways to provide what we need for our people. Specifically with us, it is our senior citizens, and trying to make sure that we take care of our senior citizens. And so that is a huge part of what we use our severance, especially mineral severance, for. And I also would like to say, while I have the opportunity, while I have the mic, as they say, that it's good to see Chairman Nemus this morning. I met Chairman Nemus. He came to Webster County back in 2017. We had a 100-year anniversary of Kentucky's worst mine explosion in Kentucky history. It was at the number 7 mine, killed 63 coal miners, mostly African-American coal miners that had came up to Kentucky looking for work. And so we discovered a lot of heritage on that. And so it was a very good day. I know that Chairman Gooch was there as well. And so, but I do appreciate you, Mr. Chairman, coming and being with us that day.
Yes, it opened minds up on a lot of, we had to call experts out of Ohio back then for safety. So I hope we've gone a long way from there. So, and the food was very good that day. Yes.
We try to feed you.
So are there any questions from members? Representative Graham?
I'm just interested in hearing about your Representative Gooch. I just want to say, the industry of coal has been a very important part of Kentucky's history.
Yes, sir.
And it provided a great deal of jobs. And there's that transition, and so we really do need to be working with the counties as they try to prepare for attracting new businesses and promoting what is good, particularly about those regions which produce coal, turning it into an area like North Carolina has done, where you have people coming in, looking at the festivals and all those things that take place, and we do have those things across Kentucky. How many, I just want to know this because I'm not familiar with a great deal of it, but how many counties are impacted when we talk about coal and mineral rights? How many counties of the 120 are impacted?
I can take that. Thank you for the question, Mr. Representative, my state representative. Proud of him. We've got there's about 100 counties in the state that receive some sort of mineral funds. I think it's like 101 to be exact. And then on the coal side, there are 26 counties right now that are considered what we call producers, which is where there's an active coal mine.
And, somewhere down the line, I knew that, but it still needs to be said in the public.
Well, it
forum.
consistently changes as well. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, for latitude. It consistently changes as mines drop or as mines expand. Sometimes they cross county boundaries, right? And so that would allow that. So, it ebbs and flows.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Gooch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's great to see my county judge, Judge Henry, here today, and he's really kind of been a quick study on all of this coal and mineral severance, and he does a good job with that. Sometimes I actually go to him and ask the questions when it probably should have been the other way around, but I know that he keeps up with it. But I want to thank all of our colleagues here because, there, as you said, there's just a few counties that are actually coal producing counties, and it's all of you who have really voted to share that with the counties. And when the law was set originally, back at a time when Muhlenberg County was the #1 coal producing county in the country, I mean there were 10 times as much coal severance then probably as there is now. And it was always set up that half of that money was going to come back to coal-producing counties, specifically for economic development, some other things, quality of life issues, and that didn't happen, and it never happened. And it's only been the recent years where we're actually giving the money back to the coal-producing counties, and it's just sad that it's at a time when the revenues are so low, but nevertheless. I can tell you, as they've said today, those monies still are being used to help the quality of life, specifically ambulance service, senior citizen services, and those sort of things that the counties would not probably be able to do were it not for this money. So thank you, colleagues, for the help you give us in the past, and I hope that we'll continue probably on the same formula again. It certainly would be beneficial to these counties. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have any questions online? If not, I have a couple things. The mineral tax, Representative Leader Miles and I were talking about on rock quarries, that the out-of-state coming in with the gravel for the roads and that don't pay the mineral tax. Can you address that some?
Sure, I'd be glad to take it. From what I know about that, we hear that some from in-state industries that we need to check with probably the Crushed Stone Association. But we hear that some. Representative Miles has filed a bill. There's been other bills filed in the past regarding a fairness of that tax to be assessed on out-of-state for sure. There's been some pushback from other industries as well. There's a lot of folks that use lime in Kentucky. So there's both sides to that argument and that story. But I mean, we're open to anything that this General Assembly would like to discuss, and as we move forward, Mr. Chairman, we'd be glad to take a look at that issue and help come up with a solution that's palatable for everybody.
Yeah, if you would, I'd appreciate that. We'll be talking about that. The next is when I was at the Labor Cabinet, we were coal industry came and they were having trouble with the pneumoconiosis funds. And it took a while for me to be able to pronounce that. For most people, that's just black lung. Since Kimi has pretty much taken over that, I think that the extra fee in that has gone away and helped the coal industry. Is that correct? Is that going fine?
I'm going to have to defer to Judge Henry, who he didn't give himself enough credit, is a retired coal miner before he entered into politics. He doesn't consider himself a politician. He considers himself a coal miner. But I'll have.
I understand why he distinguishes a coal miner from a politician.
Well, it's always been asked, do you have all your marbles when you go every day and put your head between two rocks? And that's basically what an underground coal miner does. So I don't know politician or which one would be the best there at times. But I do think that to answer your question, it has helped from my understanding, just talking with some of the coal operators, that that has helped with some of the costs of being able to offset that. One of the things that you're also seeing, though, is the workforce of the coal miner is getting on up in age, just because there's other things doing, other industries coming in, and so you're seeing a lot of older coal miners. So how that all is affected going forward, I'm not sure, in length of being in the mines and incentive to stay in the mines rather than to retire. So not really sure how that's going to go. And I will say I didn't retire from the coal mines. Not quite there yet on retirement yet, but I just took a leave of absence to be county judge executive. So we'll see how long that leave of absence is. So
you're saying you want to go back underground?
No. I love to visit. But no. I like what I'm doing.
Representative Goots.
If you might indulge me for a minute, for a little history, one of the first bills that I had when I came here, I think for the 96 session, was to make coal the official state mineral. And at that time, I was told by several people that were a little more technical that coal was actually not a mineral. And I said, well, you probably don't want to go there, because a lot of people are paying unmined minerals taxes on the coal in the ground, and we're taxing it as a mined mineral when it's mined. So I don't really think you want to make that argument against this bill, but that's just for a little bit of history for the committee. Thank you.
Well, if there are no further questions, if anybody came in remotely after the roll call, if you'll let staff know that you're here. Okay, and you know when our next meeting is? October 6th. The next meeting will be October 6th. And thank you all very much for the presentation.
Thank you for having us.
Do you have a motion to adjourn?
Thank you.
We are adjourned.